welcome. David Levin here, Raise Your Inner Game today. This is Tuesday, so we're talking about the mental game of sports and competition. Fridays are for the rest of our lives. Last week we talked about Madison Keys, who won the Australian Open. This week I want to talk about someone who also played but didn't win, and that is Naomi Osaka. Naomi is another major tennis star you probably know, has been since she was very young. She's 27 now. 8 years ago, at 19, she was the highest paid female athlete in the world. She beat Serena Williams that year to win the U.S. Open. She's a 4-time Grand Slam champion. She's also the first Japanese player to win a major singles title. What she might be most famous for now, or at least what I most know her for, is stepping back from tennis in 2021 for mental health reasons. She quit in the middle of the French Open that year and then withdrew from Wimbledon and then stepped back indefinitely to take care of herself. This was honestly a bit controversial for me. I didn't really think it was fair to her. The problem was she was getting more and more stressed out at post-match press conferences. You can imagine those can be difficult, especially after losing. She's an introvert. They were super uncomfortable. It was starting to be a distraction from playing. So she announced that she wasn't going to do them anymore. She skipped one. It turns out you're not allowed to not do them as part of your agreement being on the tour. So she was fined $15,000 for that, with more to come. Press, of course, was not happy. But she said, quote, "I'm just not going to subject myself to people that doubt me. I've watched many clips of athletes breaking down after a loss in the press room. The whole situation just feels like kicking a person while they're down," end quote. And that seems totally reasonable for me. I get the value to the tour of having athletes talk to the press, but I also get protecting your mindset. We specifically teach in our advanced mental game mastery course to avoid negativity right after competition because that's an athlete's most vulnerable time emotionally and can do real damage to their confidence. It sort of blows my mind that the tour would require athletes to do something that was so potentially harmful to their game, to make it so much harder to play at their best. Anyway, that's another conversation. But she also revealed later that she'd been struggling with long bouts of depression since 2018. So struggling in secret with a serious mental condition for 3 years. And she said she came out about that because people in the press and the tour didn't believe her. More lack of support and understanding. So it just got to be too much, and she stepped back for her own good. That alone is a great lesson and so courageous on her part. The pressure as an athlete is huge, and it only gets worse the higher you go. It's more than any normal person could deal with. And, except for their physical talent and their strange, hyper-focused lives, athletes are still normal people too. At some point, you have to make the choice to take care of yourself. And her doing that and going public with it was a huge gift to athletes everywhere to start speaking honestly about their mental health. Billie Jean King famously said, "Pressure is a privilege," and of course that's true, and it's a great perspective, but pressure is also still a powerful mental and emotional force that we have to learn to deal with. So that was 2021. She came back after a break, played some more that year, took another break near the end of that year, continued off and on in 2022, none of it at her previous level. Also had some injuries she was dealing with. So you can imagine that things might have been starting to look like they were on a permanent downward slide, and that would be a common story, right? But then in 2023, she took another break, this time for maternity leave, and had her daughter, her first child. And now, early 2025 now, after doing what is clearly a ton of work physically, mentally, she is back and seemingly in a pretty great place. Again, she didn't win the Australian Open, but she has a much better sense of balance and purpose, and she's enjoying herself a whole lot more. At least that's the impression you get from her. Back when she took her second break in 2021, she said, "Winning doesn't make me happy anymore," which is such a powerful comment to think about that. She was so burdened by everything that was going on with her, around her, inside her. Even winning didn't fix it and make things feel right. But now she's back, more chill, a new perspective. She said, no matter what happens on the court, nothing changes off the court. My daughter still loves me. My friends and family are still there. That is such a great perspective. She has done a lot of work, as I said, both physically and mentally. Therapy, meditation, journaling. She has a new coach, seems to be having fun again. And she's finding her own balance, defining her own success. That's super important. She said, if I'm not ranked at a certain level, I'd rather be home with my daughter. I love that. And an interesting side point, you can do that in tennis. You can step back, readjust, pick it up again, find your own balance. Not saying it's easy, but you do have that flexibility, whereas you don't in the big team sports, where you're really at the coach and the team's mercy all the time. The last thing I want to point out is where her struggle came from. I mean, it's always a complicated mix, but the thing she talked about was that as a young girl, she was always told you have to just tough it out. Whatever happens, tough it out. Don't show your emotions. And that created a real internal conflict, as you can imagine. When you're told something like that and you believe it, when your experience is different from that, you don't think the person who told you that was wrong. You think there's something wrong with you, right? You don't have what it takes. It just adds to the layers of stuff you have to work through. Also, she's not naturally aggressive. She has to work to get herself into the mindset that she's acted there to defeat someone else. And again, that's someone unique to tennis, that personal one-to-one competition, right? You really are on your own out there against your opponent, which is part of what makes tennis the hardest mental game in sport, in my opinion. So she had a couple of pretty strong core things that were working against her nature. And until she was able to work through those and get a new perspective on things, the pressure just got to be too much. But now, especially after becoming a mom, things seem to have turned around for her. And I just think there are a ton of good lessons in there for the rest of us. First, you have to pay attention to your mental game and your mental health in general. It is the deciding factor in your ultimate performance. If you feel like you need help, ask for help. There are resources available. And the problem is not going to get better on its own. If you need to step back for a bit to do that work, it's okay. You can find a better balance. You can find a way to bring the joy back. And when you do, that's when you'll play at your best again. As a reminder, our mental game training, the Raise Your Inner Game Sports Academy, is the quickest and easiest way to make a measurable improvement in your mental game. Results are guaranteed. And our Advanced Mental Game Mastery course takes your competitive game to the next level, the ultimate level, really. RaiseYourInnerGame.com for information on that. If your mental game questions are more about work than sports, check out our executive coaching program at davidlevin.com. Either way, a strong mental game is the key to doing your best and feeling good about yourself. You have to focus on it, prioritize it, do whatever it takes to make sure it's good and strong and you feel good. All right, that's it for this week. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, keep up the good work. I'll see you next time.